Her husband told 300 people she had let herself go. He said it loud enough for the whole ballroom to hear. He wanted his mistress to laugh, she did. But the man standing at the top of the staircase did not laugh. He reached for his phone and sent one text message that would destroy everything Andrew had ever built. What Andrew did not know was that the quiet woman he had just humiliated, the woman holding back tears in a navy dress that took her an hour to choose, the woman whose body still carried the evidence of bringing his child into the world 8 months ago, that woman was not just his wife. She was the billionaire's daughter. She had walked away from her father's empire at 21 to prove she could stand on her own. She changed her name. She refused the money. She married Andrew because she believed in him. And tonight, in front of every person who mattered to his career, he turned her into a punchline to impress a woman who was secretly stealing from the very company her father built. 300 guests, one cruel joke, and a chain of consequences that would cost Andrew his career, his reputation, his mistress, and the family he never deserved. But Emma did not just survive this night. She used it to become the most powerful version of herself. Please sit back, relax, and stay until the very end, because this story will change the way you see strength, silence, and the price of disrespect. Lesson and value bridge. Before we begin, here is what this story will give you. It is not just entertainment. It is a reminder that your worth does not decrease because someone fails to see it. Every woman who has ever been mocked for her body after childbirth, dismissed by a partner who forgot what sacrifice looks like, or made to feel small in a room full of strangers, this story is for you. Emma's journey will show you that the most powerful thing you can ever do is refuse to let someone else's cruelty define your value. Now, if stories like this matter to you, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. Leave a comment and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better? I read every single comment, and your story might be the one that helps someone else feel less alone. Share this video with a woman who needs to hear it today. And if this story moves you, that like button lets me know I should keep making content like this for you. All right, let us get into it. Look at her. She really let herself go. This is what happens after a baby. Laugh. Make it loud. She needs to hear it. Andrew Blackwell's voice cut through the elegant hum of the ballroom like a blade disguised as a joke. 300 guests filled the grand hall of the Caldwell and Mercer Annual Charity Gala, crystal chandeliers casting light across polished marble floors, and champagne flutes raised in polished hands. A string quartet played near the staircase. Laughter floated in careful, rehearsed bursts, and Emma Blackwell stood frozen beside a tall arrangement of white orchids, her navy dress suddenly feeling like a costume she had no right to wear. Her husband was not just mocking her, he was performing it, his arm draped casually around the waist of a woman in a red dress, a woman whose name Emma had only recently learned, Vanessa Holt. Andrew repeated the punchline louder this time, tilting his head toward Emma, as if presenting evidence. Motherhood really lets people go, he said, and scattered laughter rippled outward, like poison dropped into still water. But what nobody in that room knew, not Andrew, not Vanessa, not a single laughing face, was that the man standing at the top of the grand staircase, watching everything with quiet fury, was not just Andrew's boss. He was Emma's father. Richard Caldwell, billionaire founder of Caldwell and Mercer Holdings, gripped the mezzanine railing so hard his knuckles turned white. He was not watching an employee misbehave. He was watching his daughter be destroyed by the man he had allowed into his company. And the bill for that humiliation was about to bankrupt more than Andrew's pride. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back 6 months. Emma Caldwell had grown up surrounded by wealth so vast it felt like weather. You did not choose it, You did not earn it. It simply existed around you, shaping every room, every conversation, every assumption strangers made before you opened your mouth. Her father, Richard Caldwell, had built Caldwell and Mercer Holdings from a single office above a hardware store into one of the most respected private equity firms on the eastern seaboard. By the time Emma was 12, their last name opened doors she had never knocked on. By the time she was 18, she hated those doors. It was not rebellion in the loud, dramatic sense. Emma loved her father deeply, but she had watched how people changed when they learned who she was. Friends became strategic, boyfriends became investors. Professors graded with invisible bias. She could never tell if anything she earned was truly hers. So at 21, Emma made a decision that stunned everyone who knew the Caldwell name. She changed her last name to Blackwell, her mother's maiden name. She declined her trust fund. She told her father she needed to know, with absolute certainty, that she could build a life without his shadow. Richard Caldwell, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, sat in his study that night and cried, not because he was angry, because he was proud, and because he knew pride and loss often arrive together. Emma put herself through law school. She graduated near the top of her class at Columbia, passed the bar on her first attempt, and joined a respected firm in Manhattan, specializing in corporate litigation. She was sharp, disciplined, and quietly brilliant. Partners noticed a track toward partnership opened ahead of her, like a road with no speed limit. Then she met Andrew. It was at a charity fundraiser, one of those events where ambition wears a tuxedo and calls itself philanthropy. Andrew Blackwell, no relation to Emma's chosen name by coincidence alone, was a rising star in corporate acquisitions. Handsome, confident, magnetic in the way that made people lean closer when he spoke. He had grown up middle class in Connecticut, clawed his way through state school on scholarships, and carried a chip on his shoulder that he disguised as drive. Emma saw the hunger in him and mistook it for passion. Andrew saw the warmth in her and mistook it for softness. They fell fast and married within a year. When Andrew received an offer from Caldwell and Mercer Holdings, Emma felt the universe pulling a cruel joke. She never told him. Richard, respecting his daughter's wishes, said nothing, but he watched. He had always watched. The offer was legitimate. Andrew's resume was strong, his interview impressive. Richard did not hand him the job, but he did not block it either. He wanted to see what kind of man his daughter had chosen. Time, he believed, reveals everything. Emma stepped back from her legal career when the pregnancy came. It was not a decision she made lightly. Andrew's travel schedule had intensified. The firm demanded 60-hour weeks, and Emma wanted their child to have what she had craved most growing up: presence, a parent who was simply there. She kept her bar license active. Almost as an afterthought, she renewed the paperwork, paid the fees, completed her continuing education credits online while nursing at 2 in the morning. She told herself it was practical, a safety net she would probably never need. That decision, made between diaper changes and sleepless dawns, would later save her life. The pregnancy was difficult. At 32 weeks, Emma developed preeclampsia. Her blood pressure spiked dangerously. Her doctor, Helen Brooks, ordered immediate bed rest. For 2 months, Emma lay in their bedroom, monitoring her blood pressure, timing contractions, terrified that every headache meant something worse. Andrew visited the hospital twice. He sent flowers once. He told colleagues Emma was fine, exaggerating her comfort to avoid inconvenient sympathy. During month 7 of the pregnancy, Andrew started coming home late. The excuses were polished: client dinners, strategy sessions, a deal that required FaceTime. Emma noticed But she was too sick, too scared, too focused on keeping their baby alive to investigate. Her best friend, Margaret Torres, who everyone called Maggie, noticed too. Maggie was a family law attorney with a mouth that could cut glass and a loyalty that could stop bullets. She visited Emma on bed rest one Tuesday, carrying a gift basket labeled Survival Kit. Inside were chocolate bars, dry shampoo, a tiny empty flask with a note that read, "For after," and a baby onesie printed with the words, "I am the reason Mommy drinks coffee." Emma laughed so hard she triggered a blood pressure spike, and Maggie spent the next 20 minutes apologizing while simultaneously eating the chocolate she had just gifted. But beneath the laughter, Maggie's eyes were sharp. She had seen Andrew's car parked outside a restaurant downtown at 10:30 on a Wednesday. A restaurant with no conference rooms and very dim lighting. She said nothing to Emma, not yet. Some truths need timing more than volume. Lucas arrived on a stormy March morning, 6 pounds and 4 ounces of screaming, miraculous life. Emma held him against her chest and felt every fractured piece of herself fuse back together. The delivery had been hard. 36 hours of labor, an emergency intervention, blood loss that left her pale and shaking. But Lucas was here, breathing, perfect. Andrew held his son for 4 minutes before checking his phone. The months that followed reshaped Emma in ways mirrors could not fully capture. Her body healed slowly, each ache a quiet testament to what it had endured. Sleep became a myth she vaguely remembered. She learned to eat with one hand, shower in under 3 minutes, and cry silently so the baby would not wake. She returned to life part-time, attending pediatric appointments, grocery shopping with Lucas strapped to her chest, managing a household that felt increasingly like a stage set for someone else's performance. Andrew saw the fatigue, but never the effort behind it. He saw the weight she had gained, but never the life she had grown. 8 months after Lucas was born, Andrew told Emma she would attend the Caldwell and Mercer annual charity gala. "You need to show face, he said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. "Do not embarrass me." Emma stood behind him, holding their sleeping son, and felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger. Something quieter. The beginning of clarity. She chose a deep navy dress. Simple, elegant, forgiving. She spent an hour on her hair and makeup, trying to feel like the woman she remembered being. For one brief moment, standing in front of the bedroom mirror, she felt beautiful. That feeling would last exactly 45 minutes. The ballroom of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel shimmered beneath 15 crystal chandeliers, each one worth more than most people's annual salary. Executives in tailored suits moved through the crowd like chess pieces, their spouses accessorized and smiling, laughter rising in precise, social intervals. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ambition. Emma entered beside Andrew, her hand resting lightly on his arm. He walked 2 steps ahead, scanning the room the way he always did, searching for the most important person present and calculating the shortest path to their attention. Emma smoothed the fabric over her waist. The dress fit well, but her body still felt unfamiliar, softer in places that used to be sharp. Honest in ways she was still learning to accept. She reminded herself that she was here to support her husband, that this was partnership, that the discomfort in her stomach was just nerves. Andrew spotted a cluster of senior partners near the bar and steered them toward it without asking. He shook hands with the confidence of a man who believed proximity to power was the same as possessing it. Emma smiled politely, introduced herself to spouses she had met before, and pretended not to notice that Andrew had not introduced her once. A colleague approached them, a kind-faced woman from the marketing department, whose name Emma remembered because she had sent a baby gift after Lucas was born. The woman complimented Emma's dress with genuine warmth and asked about the baby with the sort of interest that comes from actually caring. Emma's smile grew real for the first time that evening. "Thank you," she said. "He is wonderful, exhausting, but wonderful." Andrew laughed too loudly, cutting in with a grin that carried farther than he intended. "That is generous," he said, gesturing toward Emma with his champagne glass. "Motherhood really lets people go." The words landed like a slap wrapped in silk. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the nearby circle, thin and metallic, the sound of people who knew they should not laugh but did not want to create awkwardness by staying silent. Emma felt heat rush up her neck, settling behind her ears. Her fingers tightened around her clutch. She held her posture, refusing to let her face collapse in front of strangers whose names she would forget by morning. The marketing colleague's smile faltered. She glanced at Emma with something between pity and discomfort, then excused herself quickly. The circle dissolved. Andrew did not notice. He was already scanning the room again. Across the ballroom, near a pillar draped in white silk, Vanessa Holt watched with lips curved in satisfaction. She wore a red dress that clung to every deliberate angle. Her dark hair swept over one shoulder, her confidence sharp as a blade. Andrew had insisted she attend, calling her a friend, a colleague, a contact. The words changed depending on who asked. Vanessa caught Andrew's eye and raised her glass slightly. He straightened, shoulders back, chin up, performing strength the way actors perform emotion. For her. Everything tonight was for her. Emma excused herself gently, murmuring something about fresh air. She walked toward the balcony doors with measured steps, each one costing more composure than the last. The night air hit her flushed skin like mercy. City lights blinked far below, indifferent witnesses to a humiliation they could not hear. She pressed her palms against the cold railing and breathed slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The technique her therapist had taught her for panic attacks, though she had never imagined using it at a gala while wearing a dress that had taken her an hour to choose. Inside, music continued. Glasses clinked, deals whispered into corners. Life unchanged for everyone except the woman standing alone on a balcony, reminding herself that she had survived worse than embarrassment. She wiped the corner of her eye carefully, refusing tears the satisfaction of falling. She thought of Lucas asleep at home with the babysitter. His tiny fist curled around a stuffed elephant. She thought of labor, 36 hours of pain that had produced the most perfect thing she had ever seen. Compared to that, this was survivable. Unfair, but survivable. When she returned inside, the scene had worsened. Andrew and Vanessa stood together near the dessert table, close enough that their shoulders touched. Vanessa's hand rested on Andrew's arm with the casual possessiveness of someone who believed ownership was already settled. Andrew was retelling the joke. Louder this time. Crueler. "I told her to hit the gym before tonight," he said, his voice carrying across nearby conversations. Clearly she thought I was joking. Vanessa laughed, bright and sharp, and then she noticed Emma standing 8 feet away. Instead of showing the minimal human decency of silence, Vanessa turned directly to Emma and spoke. "Oh, honey, do not worry. Some women just are not built to bounce back. It is genetic." The words were delivered with a smile so polished, it could have been mistaken for kindness by anyone not standing in Emma's shoes. Vanessa leaned into Andrew and whispered something that made him laugh again, their shared amusement landing on Emma like a second blow before the first had finished hurting. Emma's hands trembled. Her clutch slipped from her fingers and hit the marble floor with a sound that seemed impossibly loud. She bent to pick it up and heard someone nearby whisper, "Poor thing." She straightened, clutch in hand, spine aligned through sheer willpower, and walked away. Not running, not dramatic, just a woman removing herself from cruelty with whatever grace she had left. On the mezzanine above, Richard Caldwell had watched the entire sequence. He had arrived late, entering through the private elevator reserved for the firm's founder, and had been greeting board members on the upper level when his daughter's name drifted up from below. He looked down and saw everything: the joke, the laughter, Vanessa's hand on Andrew's arm, Emma's clutch falling, the way she bent to pick it up, while people watched and did nothing. Richard's hand tightened on the railing until the metal pressed white lines into his palm. His face remained composed because 62 years of leadership had taught him that the most dangerous responses are the quietest ones. But inside, something ancient and paternal ignited, the kind of fury that does not burn fast. It burns complete. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text to his personal attorney. "I need everything on Andrew Blackwell, tonight." Then he straightened his jacket, descended the staircase, and rejoined the gala with a smile that terrified anyone perceptive enough to notice it did not reach his eyes. Emma locked herself in a bathroom stall and called Maggie. Her voice broke on the second word. "He did it in front of everyone," she whispered. She was right there. They were laughing. Everyone saw. Maggie's response came fast and fierce. "Give me the address. I am coming with bail money and a very specific plan that I cannot discuss on a recorded line." Emma laughed through her tears, a broken, grateful sound. Then she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and did not recognize the woman staring back. Somewhere between the pregnancy and the humiliation, Emma Caldwell had disappeared. And Emma Blackwell, the woman who had chosen that name to prove she could stand alone, did not know how to find her way home. The car ride home was silence wrapped in leather seats and city lights. Andrew drove with one hand on the wheel and the other checking his phone at red lights. His expression satisfied, energized, the face of a man who believed the evening had gone well. Emma sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the window where reflections of street lamps passed like slow, distant heartbeats. She was not planning what to say. She was not rehearsing an argument. She was listening to something inside herself shift, the way you hear a foundation crack before you see the damage. Andrew broke the silence first. "You could at least try to look like you had a good time. You made me look bad." Emma turned her head slowly. "I made you look bad." It was not a question. It was an echo, repeated so he could hear the shape of his own words. Andrew sighed dramatically. "See, this is what I mean. Everything is about you lately." Emma looked at him for a long moment, then turned back to the window. She did not have the energy to explain how deeply wrong that sentence was. Not tonight. Tonight she just needed to get home, check on Lucas, and breathe without an audience. At home, the babysitter reported that Lucas had slept the entire evening, and Emma thanked her with a warmth that felt like the first honest interaction she had experienced in hours. She paid the girl, locked the door, and went to the nursery where her son lay sleeping with one arm stretched above his head, fingers curled loosely, as though reaching for something in a dream. Emma stood over the crib and let the tears come. Quietly, privately, the way she had learned to cry since becoming a mother. Sound carried in this house, and she had long ago stopped trusting what Andrew would do with her vulnerability. The confrontation came the next morning. Andrew was eating toast at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone, when Emma set a cup of coffee in front of him and sat down across the island. We need to talk about last night, she said. Andrew did not look up. What about it? Emma's voice was steady. You humiliated me in front of 300 people. You called me fat. You let another woman mock me to my face. And then you acted like I was the problem. Andrew finally looked up, his expression hovering between annoyance and amusement. Emma, it was a joke. People laughed. You are being sensitive. I am being accurate, Emma replied. There is a difference. Andrew set his phone down with exaggerated patience. You want me to apologize for having a sense of humor? Fine. I am sorry you were offended. Emma held his gaze. That is not an apology. That is a relocation of blame. Something flickered across Andrew's face. Irritation sharpened into something harder. Okay, you want honest? Here is honest. You have changed, Emma. You used to take care of yourself. You used to try. Now you use the baby as an excuse for everything. Your weight, your mood, your appearance, it is exhausting. The words landed like calculated strikes, each one aimed at the places Emma was most vulnerable. She felt them hit, felt the old instinct to absorb the blow, to shrink, to wonder if maybe he was right. But then she remembered the balcony, the bathroom stall, Maggie's voice on the phone, and something in her spine refused to bend. My body carried your child, she said quietly. Your son. I nearly died bringing him into this world. I am not going to apologize for what that cost me. Andrew rolled his eyes. Spare me the martyr speech. Emma continued, as if he had not spoken. How long has it been going on with Vanessa? The kitchen went silent. Andrew's toast stopped halfway to his mouth. His jaw tightened. It is not what you think, he said. How long, Andrew? 7 months. The number hung in the air between them. Emma did the math instantly, the way her legal mind processed facts even when her heart was breaking. 7 months. He had started the affair when she was on bed rest with preeclampsia, when her blood pressure was dangerously high, when she could not walk to the bathroom without monitoring her pulse, when she could have died. She stood up slowly, steadying herself on the counter, not because she was weak, but because the weight of that realization needed a moment to settle into her bones. Andrew scrambled. Emma, listen. It meant nothing. She pursued me. I was stressed, scared about the baby, about money, about everything. It just happened. Affairs do not just happen, Emma said, her voice low and precise. They are chosen, every single time. I will end it, Andrew said quickly, his voice shifting into the urgent, desperate register of a man watching his safety net fray. I swear. It is over. I will go to counseling. Whatever you need. Emma looked at him, not with anger, not with forgiveness, with the exhausted clarity of someone who has been lied to so many times that truth and performance have become indistinguishable. She wanted to believe him. She was tired enough, lonely enough, scared enough to want it. Lucas needed a father. She needed stability. And some part of her, the part that still remembered falling in love with a charming man at a charity fundraiser, whispered that maybe people could change. Okay, she said finally. Counseling. And it ends with Vanessa. Completely. Andrew nodded eagerly, already composing the version of this story he would tell himself later. The version where he was forgiven because he deserved to be. For 2 weeks, Andrew performed redemption the way he performed everything, convincingly, as long as you did not look too closely. He came home early. He brought flowers. He held Lucas with something that approximated tenderness. He told Emma he had ended things with Vanessa, that it was done, that he was committed. Emma began to hope. It was cautious hope, bruised and limping, but it was there. She started sleeping in their bedroom again. She cooked dinner twice. She let Andrew kiss her forehead one night and did not pull away. Maggie called on a Thursday afternoon to check in. How is the reformed husband? She asked with the skepticism of a woman who had represented too many cheating spouses to trust redemption timelines. He is trying, Emma said. Maggie paused. Trying is not the same as changed. Watch his phone, not his flowers. Emma bristled. I trust him, Maggie. Maggie's voice softened. I know you do, honey. That is what scares me. The second phone appeared on a Wednesday afternoon, delivered not by investigation but by an 8-month-old baby with strong arms and impeccable timing. Emma was feeding Lucas in the kitchen when he reached for the counter, grabbed the strap of Andrew's gym bag, and pulled it off the edge. The bag hit the floor, and a phone she had never seen before slid across the tiles, spinning to a stop against the refrigerator. Emma stared at it. Lucas gurgled happily, pleased with his destruction. She picked up the phone. It was not Andrew's regular device. It was a prepaid smartphone, the kind sold at convenience stores, the kind purchased by people who needed conversations to disappear. Her hands were steady as she pressed the power button. No passcode. Andrew's arrogance had always been his most reliable feature. The messages loaded, and Emma's cautious, limping hope collapsed like a condemned building. Hundreds of texts to Vanessa. He had never stopped. The counseling sessions he claimed to attend every Tuesday evening were hotel reservations. The flowers he brought home were Vanessa's suggestion, chosen together over lunch with a laughing emoji. A message from 3 days ago read, "She actually thinks I changed. This is almost too easy." Emma scrolled further, her legal training overriding her emotions, cataloging evidence the way she once cataloged case files. And then she found something that changed everything, a separate thread. Vanessa communicating with an unknown number. The messages contained detailed financial information, acquisition targets, deal timelines, internal valuations, all proprietary, Caldwell and Mercer data. Vanessa had been extracting confidential information from Andrew, likely through casual conversation he was too proud to recognize as interrogation, and feeding it to a competing firm. Andrew was not just a cheating husband. He was an unwitting corporate spy. And Vanessa was not just a mistress. She was an operative who had seduced the right man at the right company to steal the right information. Emma set the phone down carefully. Lucas reached for her necklace and she lifted him, pressing her lips to his forehead, breathing in the smell of baby shampoo and innocence, while her mind raced through implications that stretched far beyond her marriage. If she exposed Vanessa's espionage, Andrew could face federal charges. Her son's father could become a felon. Lucas would grow up visiting his dad through security glass. If she stayed silent, her husband would continue betraying both her and the company her own father had built from nothing. She sat in the nursery that night long after Lucas fell asleep, staring at the ceiling in the blue glow of his nightlight, feeling the walls of her life close in from every direction. At 2 a.m, she called Maggie. Maggie answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. Someone better be dead. Not yet, Emma said. But the night is young. A pause. Then the sound of Maggie sitting up, sheets rustling, a lamp clicking on. I will put coffee on. Emma told her everything. The second phone, the messages, the corporate espionage, the impossible choice between protecting her son's future and exposing the truth. Maggie listened without interrupting, which for Maggie was the equivalent of a standing ovation of self-control. When Emma finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Then Maggie said, "Do not confront him. Do not delete anything. Do not tell anyone else. Tomorrow morning, you are going to bring me that phone and every piece of financial documentation you can access. We are going to copy everything to a secure cloud server. And then we are going to build a case so airtight that when this man falls, he falls into a hole he cannot climb out of." Emma exhaled. "I do not know if I can do this." Maggie's voice hardened with love. "You put yourself through Columbia Law School while waitressing 3 nights a week. You survived preeclampsia. You are raising a baby alone while married. You can absolutely do this. Emma wiped her face with the back of her hand. What if I lose Lucas? Maggie's answer came without hesitation. You will not, because I am the best family law attorney in this city, and I do not lose. Emma spent the next 2 weeks in careful, invisible motion. She copied the contents of the second phone to a secure cloud drive. She requested bank statements going back 18 months and discovered Andrew had been siphoning money into a separate account. The total, $47,000, had been transferred in small increments designed to avoid detection. She contacted her former law firm to explore returning to practice. She found a small apartment 4 miles from the house and signed a lease under her maiden name. She arranged everything with the precision of a woman who had once built legal arguments for a living and now needed to build an escape. She did not tell Andrew. She smiled at dinner. She thanked him for the flowers. She let him believe the performance was working. And every night, after he fell asleep, she added another document to the cloud drive, another screenshot, another brick in the wall she was building around him. On a Friday afternoon, Maggie called with news that made Emma sit down on the edge of the bathtub. The papers are ready, Maggie said. Divorce filing, custody petition, financial fraud documentation. We serve him Monday at his office. Maximum professional embarrassment. Minimum time for him to prepare. Emma felt something she had not felt in months. Power. Small, fragile, new, but real. She bought herself a new dress that weekend, not to look good for anyone else, because she wanted to feel like Emma again. That feeling lasted exactly 72 hours. On Wednesday evening, Andrew came home sober and calm. He sat Emma down at the kitchen table with a composure that immediately frightened her, because Andrew was never calm without a strategy behind it. I talked to my lawyer today, he said. Emma's pulse spiked, but her face remained still. What lawyer? Andrew leaned forward, his voice measured, almost gentle, the way a predator slows down when it knows the prey cannot run. If you try to leave me, I will get full custody of Lucas. Emma's blood went cold. Andrew continued. My lawyer says a judge will see a mother who quit her career, has no income, no property in her name, and a documented history of postpartum emotional instability. Your therapist's notes, Emma. You left that office crying 3 weeks ago. I have a witness. The room tilted. Emma gripped the edge of the table. Andrew was not finished. The house is in my name. The cars are in my name. The savings accounts are in my name. You signed those documents when you trusted me to manage our finances. Remember. Emma remembered. She remembered signing papers while nursing Lucas, while exhausted, while trusting the man she married to handle the details she was too overwhelmed to read. Andrew had been building this cage for months. The therapy he had encouraged, the financial management he had insisted on, the property titles he had arranged. Every kind gesture had been a bar in a cell she could not see until the door was already locked. And then the catastrophes came in rapid succession, one after another, like waves designed to drown. First, she discovered that every major asset, the house, both vehicles, the investment portfolio, was solely in Andrew's name. Her name appeared on nothing of value. Second, Andrew revealed he had been recording her. Her worst moments captured on his phone. Crying after the gala. A shouting match where she threw a glass in frustration. A fight he had deliberately provoked. A panic attack at 3 a.m. when she could not stop shaking. He had compiled these recordings into a file and shared them with his attorney. Third, Emma received a call from her new landlord. Andrew had found out about the apartment. He had tracked her car, contacted the property manager, and claimed Emma was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous to herself. The lease was terminated. Her deposit would be returned by mail. The landlord sounded apologetic but firm. Everything collapsed at once. Her escape route was gone. Her finances were controlled. Her emotional health had been weaponized. And the man sitting across the kitchen table from her was smiling with the satisfaction of someone who had built a trap and watched it close perfectly. "You are not going anywhere," Andrew said. "And if you try, you will lose everything, including Lucas." That night, Emma sat in Maggie's car in a grocery store parking lot at 11, Lucas asleep in his car seat, and stared through the windshield at nothing. "He planned this," she said, her voice hollow. "Every therapy session, every nice gesture, every document I signed. He was building a cage." Maggie sat beside her, hands tight on the steering wheel of a parked car, fury radiating from her in waves. "Then we build a bigger one," she said, "around him." Emma shook her head slowly. "I have no house, no money I can access, a husband who has recordings of me at my worst, and he is threatening to take my son." Maggie turned to face her. "Emma Caldwell Blackwell, you graduated top of your class from Columbia. You passed the bar on your first try. You survived preeclampsia and 36 hours of labor. You kept your license active while breastfeeding at 2 in the morning. You are the smartest, strongest, most stubborn woman I have ever known. And I once represented a woman who hid divorce papers inside a frozen turkey for 3 months. So trust me when I say this. He has not won. He has just shown us his entire hand." Emma stared at her best friend, then at her sleeping son, then at her own reflection in the dark window, a woman she barely recognized but was beginning to remember. "There is one more option," Emma whispered. "One I swore I would never use." Before Emma could reach for that option, Vanessa made a move that nearly shattered what little ground remained. A text arrived on Emma's phone from an unknown number. Simple, direct, devastating. "We should talk, woman to woman. Coffee tomorrow. You will want to hear what I have to say." Maggie told her not to go. "Do not give that woman oxygen," she argued. "She feeds on reactions." Emma went anyway. Not out of weakness, out of strategy. She needed to understand exactly what she was dealing with. Vanessa was already seated at a corner table when Emma arrived, a latte in front of her, legs crossed, posture radiating the kind of confidence that comes from believing you have already won. She smiled when Emma sat down, and the smile was so polished it could have been sold at auction. "Thank you for coming," Vanessa said, as though she had extended an invitation to brunch rather than a confrontation. Emma said nothing. She set her phone face down on the table and waited. Vanessa studied her for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. "I will be direct," she said. "I am pregnant, 8 weeks." The words hit Emma like a physical blow, but she did not flinch. She had spent too many hours in courtrooms to let her face betray her mind. Vanessa continued, her voice soft with manufactured sympathy. "Andrew knows. He is thrilled. And honestly, Emma, I think deep down you know this marriage has been over for a long time. I am not here to gloat. I am here to offer you a clean exit." Emma's hands stayed folded on the table. Her pulse hammered, but her expression remained still. "Take whatever settlement Andrew offers," Vanessa said. "Disappear quietly. If you fight this, I promise you, you will lose everything, including Lucas." The threat was delivered with a smile, like poison served in a crystal glass. Vanessa tilted her head slightly, studying Emma's reaction, the way a scientist watches an experiment. Emma looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, in a voice so calm it made Vanessa's smile falter by a fraction, "You think you know who you are threatening. You do not." She stood, picked up her phone, and walked out without looking back. In the car, she sat for 3 minutes, with her forehead against the steering wheel. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes once, and made the call she had sworn she would never make. The phone rang twice. A voice she had not heard in over a year answered. "Hello." Emma's throat tightened. "Dad, it is Emma. I need help." Silence. Then a breath. Then a voice that carried 62 years of strength and the particular tenderness reserved for the child who had broken your heart by being brave enough to leave. "Tell me where you are," Richard Caldwell said. "I am coming." They met at a quiet restaurant Richard owned but rarely visited, a place with leather booths and low lighting where conversations could happen without witnesses. Emma arrived first. She had not seen her father in person in over a year. Their last conversation had been by phone, brief and painful. Emma insisting she needed to stand alone, Richard respecting her wish while quietly dying inside. When he walked in, Emma noticed he had aged. The hair was whiter, the lines around his eyes deeper, but his posture was the same. A man who entered rooms as though he had built them, which in many cases he had. He slid into the booth across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Richard broke the silence by sliding a menu toward her. "Order anything," he said. "I own the building." Emma almost smiled. "You own everything, Dad." That was kind of the problem. They looked at each other, and something between them softened. Not fully repaired, but acknowledged. Emma told him everything. Andrew's affair, the Gala humiliation, the custody threats, the financial trap, Vanessa's pregnancy claim, the second phone, all of it laid out in the precise, evidence-first manner of a woman trained in law and seasoned by survival. Richard listened without interrupting. When she finished, his face had gone through several stages of carefully controlled fury, finally settling on a stillness that Emma recognized from childhood. It was the expression he wore before making decisions that changed other people's lives permanently. Then he told her what he knew. His investigation, launched the night of the gala, had uncovered suspicious patterns in Caldwell and Mercer's recent deal failures. 3 major acquisitions had been sabotaged by leaked information. The losses totaled $12.3 million. James Whitfield, the company's general counsel, had traced the leak to deals that Andrew had access to, but could not yet identify the external recipient. Emma connected the dots for him. She described the messages on the second phone. Vanessa feeding proprietary information to a competing firm using Andrew as an unwitting source, extracting data through conversations he was too proud to recognize as interrogation. Richard's expression changed. Just slightly, but enough to send a chill through the warm restaurant. "He used my company to betray my daughter," he said quietly. Emma reached across the table. "Dad, I need you to understand something. I am not coming to you because I cannot handle this alone. I am coming because my son deserves every weapon I can give him." Richard nodded slowly. "What do you need? Your lawyers? Your investigators? And one more thing. Name it. I need you to keep being his boss. Smile at him. Promote the meeting. Let him think he is winning until he is not." Richard studied his daughter across the table with an expression she had never seen directed at her before. It was not parental concern or protective fury. It was professional respect. The look he gave equals. "You really are my kid," he said. Over the next 3 weeks, Emma assembled her team. Maggie handled divorce strategy and custody preparation. James Whitfield built the corporate espionage case with federal prosecutors. Richard's private investigators tracked Vanessa's network, financial transactions, and communications. Dr. Helen Brooks, Emma's obstetrician, prepared medical testimony documenting that Emma's preeclampsia had been worsened by stress during the exact period Andrew began his affair. The investigation uncovered revelations that arrived like dominoes falling. Vanessa was not pregnant. The claim was entirely fabricated. A private investigator discovered that Vanessa had told a friend over drinks The pregnancy test in my purse is from a website. $15 to end a marriage. Andrew's secret recordings of Emma were obtained in a two-party consent state. Every single recording was made without Emma's knowledge or agreement, making them not only inadmissible as evidence, but potentially criminal in themselves. The $47,000 Andrew had siphoned from their accounts had been transferred to Vanessa, who used portions of it to pay a junior analyst at Caldwell and Mercer for additional proprietary data. The paper trail connected Andrew's money directly to corporate espionage, making him an unwitting accomplice to a federal crime. James Whitfield sat in a conference room with Maggie reviewing the complete evidence package. His expression shifted from professional focus to genuine disbelief. So he stole from his wife to fund his mistress's espionage against his own boss, who is secretly his father-in-law, James said. Yes, Maggie confirmed. James stared at the ceiling. I need to sit down. Maggie looked at him. You are sitting down. I need to sit down more. Emma reactivated her law license on a Tuesday morning that felt like the first day of a life she had almost forgotten she was qualified to live. She walked into the state bar office, filed her paperwork, signed the forms, and walked out as attorney Emma Caldwell Blackwell. 3 years away from practice had not dulled the edge that Columbia had sharpened. It had simply been waiting, like a blade stored in a drawer. The plan required 3 simultaneous strikes, each one timed to land before Andrew could respond to the previous blow. Strike 1 was corporate. Richard would promote Andrew to a position requiring expanded security clearance. The enhanced background investigation would expose every financial irregularity, every hidden account, every transaction linking Andrew to Vanessa's espionage network. Andrew would walk into his own destruction, believing it was his coronation. Strike 2 was criminal. James Whitfield would submit a formal referral to the FBI documenting the corporate espionage, the leaked data, the financial trail. Vanessa's competing firm was already under preliminary investigation. The evidence was comprehensive, meticulously documented, and devastating. Strike 3 was personal. Emma would file for divorce, citing fraud, financial abuse, coercive control, and adultery. She would petition for full custody, complete asset recovery, and a restraining order. Her filing would include documentation of Andrew's illegal recordings, his financial manipulation, his deliberate weaponization of her mental health treatment, and his systematic campaign to isolate and control her. Each strike was designed to reinforce the others. The corporate exposure validated the personal abuse. The criminal referral eliminated Andrew's credibility in custody proceedings. The divorce filing created a civil record that supported the federal case. Together, they formed a structure so comprehensive that escape required disproving everything simultaneously. Andrew, meanwhile, moved through his days with the confidence of a man who believed he was ascending. Richard had scheduled a private meeting to discuss Andrew's expanded role. Andrew interpreted this as the promotion he had been chasing since his first day at the firm. He bought a new suit. He rehearsed his acceptance speech in the bathroom mirror. He texted Vanessa from his second phone, the one he did not know had been copied. It is almost over. Once I am in the executive suite, Emma gets nothing. Vanessa replied, make sure the prenup is airtight for wife number 2. They did not know that every text was now being monitored under a court-authorized warrant. Every word they typed was evidence cataloging itself. In the final days before the strike, Andrew noticed small things that his ego prevented him from interpreting correctly. Richard was friendlier than usual. Emma seemed calmer. The HR director smiled at him in the elevator with what appeared to be genuine warmth. The office felt different, like a room that had been cleaned too thoroughly, every surface polished, every corner tidy, the kind of order that usually precedes something being dismantled. Andrew mentioned this to Vanessa. "Something feels off," he said over the phone. "You are being paranoid," she replied. "You are about to get promoted. Relax. My boss smiled at me today." A pause. "Okay, that is weird." On the morning of the planned meeting, Andrew attempted to access his hidden bank account to transfer funds. The account was frozen. A legal hold had been placed by federal authority. His hands began to shake as he called the bank, navigated automated systems, and finally reached a representative who could only say, "I am sorry, sir. I am not authorized to provide details regarding the hold on your account." He called Vanessa. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. A third attempt. The number had been disconnected. Andrew drove to Vanessa's apartment building during his lunch break. The doorman, a man named Gerald, who had always greeted Andrew with professional courtesy, looked at him with an expression that hovered between pity and discomfort. "Ms. Holt moved out 3 days ago," Gerald said. "Did not leave a forwarding address." Andrew stood in the lobby for a full minute, his reflection staring back at him from the polished marble floor. Vanessa had discovered the investigation through her own channels and fled. She had abandoned him completely, taking the $47,000, the promises, the fabricated pregnancy, and every illusion Andrew had built his future upon. That evening, Andrew drove home in a state of numb disbelief. When he walked through the front door, the house was quiet. Not the tense quiet of recent months, a different quiet. The kind that fills a space after the people who lived there have already left. Lucas's crib was empty. Emma's closet was half cleared. Her toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. Her laptop, her documents, the framed photo of Lucas from the hospital, all gone. On the kitchen counter sat a manila envelope. Inside were divorce papers, a restraining order, and a note in Emma's handwriting. Clear, steady, precise. "You wanted me to disappear quietly." I decided to disappear loudly. Andrew sank into a kitchen chair and stared at the papers until the words blurred. For the first time in his adult life, he had absolutely no strategy, no spin, no angle, no performance that could undo what was happening. The cage he had built for Emma had been quietly, systematically turned inside out, and he was now standing in the center of it. 3 days later, Andrew arrived at Caldwell and Mercer, wearing his best suit and carrying a leather portfolio he had purchased specifically for what he believed would be the most important meeting of his career. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than usual. The hallway smelled of polished wood and fresh flowers. Since Andrew had always associated with power and proximity to people who mattered, he nodded at the assistant outside the boardroom. "Good morning, Andrew," she said. Her tone was professional and completely unreadable. "They are ready for you." Andrew straightened his tie, took a breath, and pushed open the heavy double doors. The boardroom was long, glass-walled, with a mahogany table that seated 20. At the head sat Richard Caldwell, hands folded, expression composed. To his left was James Whitfield, the general counsel, with 3 thick, legal binders arranged in front of him like evidence exhibits at trial. To his right sat Miss Lawson from HR, her laptop open, her face professionally neutral. Near the window stood 2 people Andrew did not recognize. A man and a woman in dark suits with credentials clipped to their belts. Federal agents. Their posture communicated everything their silence did not. And in the corner, sitting in a leather chair, with perfect posture, wearing a charcoal suit that fit her like armor, was Emma. Andrew stopped in the doorway. The portfolio slipped slightly in his grip. "Emma," he said, "what are you doing here?" Richard's voice cut through the confusion. "Sit down, Andrew." Andrew sat, not with his usual confidence. with the mechanical compliance of someone whose body understood the situation before his mind caught up. Richard did not waste time. "This meeting is not what you were expecting," he said. "Let me clarify its purpose." James Whitfield opened the first binder. "Over the past 4 months," he began, "Caldwell and Mercer has experienced data breaches resulting in the compromise of 3 major acquisition strategies. Total estimated losses are $12.3 million. Our investigation has traced the source of these leaks to information accessible through your department credentials." Andrew's face drained of color. "I did not leak anything," he said quickly. Whitfield continued, as though Andrew had not spoken. "The proprietary information was transmitted to a competing firm through an intermediary identified as Vanessa Holt. Ms. Holt received the data through conversations with you and through a junior analyst she recruited using funds you provided." Andrew's mouth opened. The words that came out were fragmented. "She was not. I did not know. The money was personal. The financial trail has been documented and submitted to federal investigators," Whitfield said. He turned to the agents near the window. "These representatives from the FBI are present to inform you of your status in their ongoing investigation." The female agent stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwell, you are currently identified as a person of interest in a federal investigation into corporate espionage and fraud. You are not under arrest at this time. Your cooperation in this investigation will significantly influence any charging decisions." Andrew's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. His knuckles were white. His breathing had become shallow and visible. Richard let the silence hold for exactly the right amount of time. Then he stood, walked around the table, and stopped beside Emma's chair. He placed his hand on her shoulder with the tenderness of a father who had waited 8 years for permission to protect his child again. Then he looked directly at Andrew. "I would like to introduce you to someone you should have treated better," Richard said. "This is my daughter, Emma Caldwell." The boardroom went perfectly still. Andrew stared at Richard's hand on Emma's shoulder, then at Emma's face, then back at Richard, his mind trying to process a revelation that rewrote every assumption he had operated under since joining the firm. "Your daughter?" Andrew whispered. Richard continued. 8 years ago, she walked away from everything I could give her because she wanted to earn her own life. She changed her name. She refused my money. She declined every advantage I offered. She married you because she believed in you." He paused, his voice dropping to a register that made the federal agent stand slightly straighter. "And you humiliated her at my gala, in my ballroom, in front of my guests, while she was recovering from carrying your child." Andrew's voice cracked. "I did not know." Emma spoke for the first time. "That is the point, Andrew. You should not have needed to know who my father was to treat me with basic decency." The sentence landed in the room like a verdict. Andrew opened his mouth to respond and found nothing. No excuse, no strategy, shabum, no performance, no charm. Just a man sitting in a chair that suddenly felt far too large for him. Miss Lawson from HR spoke next. "Your employment at Caldwell and Mercer is terminated effective immediately," she said. "Security will escort you to collect personal items from your office. Your access credentials have been revoked." Andrew looked around the room wildly, as though searching for an ally. There were none. James Whitfield slid a document across the table. "This is a separation agreement," he said. "It includes a comprehensive non-disclosure clause and cooperation requirements related to the federal investigation. Your attorney should review it, but I will note that refusing to sign will not improve your position." Andrew stared at the document, then at Emma. "Emma," he said, and his voice carried the desperate quality of a man finally understanding the full weight of what he had done. "Please." Emma met his eyes. She did not look triumphant. She did not look cruel. She looked like a woman who had walked through fire and emerged not unburned, but standing. "I filed for divorce 3 days ago," she said. "Full custody of Lucas, full asset recovery. My attorney has documented your financial manipulation, your illegal recordings in a two-party consent state, your coercive control, and your adultery." Vanessa's pregnancy was fabricated. She admitted it to a friend, and our investigators have the recording. Andrew's face collapsed. Not dramatically. More like a building settling after the supports are removed. Slowly, completely, irreversibly. "She was not pregnant," he whispered. "No," Emma said. "She was not. She was using you, Andrew. The same way you were using me. The difference is, I survived it." The consequences arrived in the weeks that followed with the methodical precision of a system designed to process accountability. Andrew cooperated with the federal investigation. He had little choice. The evidence against Vanessa was comprehensive, and his testimony as a cooperating witness was the only currency he had left to trade for leniency. He faced no prison time, but his career in finance was effectively over. His name appeared in industry publications not as a rising star, but as a cautionary footnote. The man who had chased applause at a gala now flinched at the sound of his own name in professional conversations. Vanessa Holt was arrested at a regional airport attempting to board a flight with a one-way ticket and a suitcase containing $43,000 in cash. She was charged with corporate espionage, wire fraud, and theft of trade secrets. Her firm paid an $8 million settlement. 3 of its senior partners were indicted. The fake pregnancy was exposed during proceedings, documented in court records that would follow her name through every background check for the rest of her life. The divorce was granted on a Tuesday morning in a courtroom that smelled of old wood and administrative coffee. Emma's attorney, Maggie Torres, presented a case so meticulously constructed that Andrew's lawyer requested 3 separate recesses to consult with his client, each time returning with a slightly more defeated expression. Full custody of Lucas was awarded to Emma. Child support was mandated at a level that reflected Andrew's earning capacity, which, given his career trajectory, was a number that would shrink with time. The house, the vehicles, and the investment accounts were determined to be marital assets acquired through a pattern of financial deception. Emma received the majority. After the hearing, Maggie and Emma sat on a bench outside the courthouse. The spring air was warm. Birds were unreasonably cheerful. Maggie leaned back and exhaled. "I told you, I do not lose," Emma smiled. "You also told me someone better be dead when I called you at 2 in the morning." Maggie shrugged. "I contain multitudes." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Emma said, "I keep waiting to feel victorious, but mostly I just feel tired." Maggie nodded. "Victory does not always feel like a parade. Sometimes it feels like finally putting down something heavy." Emma reconciled with her father, but not by becoming dependent on him again. She accepted his help the way adults accept help from people who love them, with gratitude, without shame, and with boundaries that honored both their independence and their bond. Richard funded nothing. Emma did not ask, and he did not offer. What he gave her instead was presence. Sunday dinners where Lucas crawled across his grandfather's Persian rug, while Richard pretended to be annoyed and was visibly delighted. Phone calls on Wednesday evenings that started with business and ended with Richard asking how Lucas liked the stuffed elephant he had sent, the third one, because the first 2 had been loved into structural failure. One evening, sitting on Richard's patio, while Lucas chased fireflies in the yard, Emma said, "I should have called you sooner." Richard watched his grandson stumble and recover, stumble and recover. "You called exactly when you were ready," he said. I could not have asked for more. Emma returned to legal practice, not at a massive corporate firm. She joined a mid-sized practice specializing in family law and domestic abuse advocacy. Her first week, she sat across from a woman whose story echoed her own so precisely that Emma had to excuse herself for a moment to compose her expression. She did not take the case personally. She took it professionally, and that discipline, the ability to channel pain into precision, made her exceptionally effective. Within months, her reputation grew, not because of her father's name, which she kept private, because of her work. She was thorough, strategic, compassionate, and relentless. Clients trusted her because she understood their fear from the inside. Opposing attorneys respected her because she never bluffed and never blinked. She bought a small house in a neighborhood with good schools and mature trees. 3 bedrooms, one for her, one for Lucas, one that she turned into a home office, where she worked after bedtime, legal briefs spread across a desk she had chosen herself. Maggie helped her move in on a Saturday. They carried boxes, assembled furniture badly, ordered pizza, and argued about where the couch should go with the passion of people debating constitutional law. When they finished, Maggie hung a framed sign in the kitchen. It read, "This home, protected by a lawyer, a billionaire grandpa, and a baby who bites." Emma laughed. A real laugh. The kind that starts deep in the chest and arrives in the room without permission. The kind she had almost forgotten how to make. Lucas took his first steps that autumn in the living room of their new house, wobbling forward with the determined concentration of someone who has no idea falling is an option. Emma caught him when he stumbled and lifted him into the air, and he squealed with joy that echoed off walls that belonged to them. She stood in the mirror one morning, looked at the body that had carried life and survived betrayal and rebuilt itself not into what it was before, but into what it needed to be now. And instead of criticism, she whispered, "You did it." It felt strange at first, like speaking a language she was still learning, but repetition turned it into truth. On a crisp Monday morning, 6 months after the divorce, Emma dropped Lucas at daycare. He was walking confidently now, all determined stride and wide eyes. She knelt, kissed his forehead, and said, "Go show them what you got, little man." He toddled through the door without looking back, already brave, already certain. She drove to her office. On her desk sat a new case file. She opened it, read the intake summary, and recognized the pattern immediately. A woman whose husband had humiliated her at a company dinner. A woman who believed she was trapped. A woman who did not yet know she had more power than she thought. Emma picked up the phone. "Hi, this is Attorney Caldwell. I understand what you are going through, and I want you to know you have more power than you think." She hung up 20 minutes later. Case accepted, strategy forming. She reached for her coffee and noticed her phone screen had lit up with a notification. A text from an unknown number. "I heard you are a lawyer now. I need one. Please." The message was signed with a single name. Andrew. Emma stared at the screen for 3 seconds. Then she set the phone face down on her desk and returned to her new client's file. She did not respond. She did not need to. Some chapters end not with a final sentence, but with the silence that follows when a person has finally, completely moved on. The story of Emma Blackwell, born Emma Caldwell, was not a story about revenge. It was not a story about a billionaire's daughter wielding her father's power to crush a cheating husband. It was a story about a woman who lost nearly everything and discovered that the most valuable thing she possessed had never been taken because it could not be, her knowledge of her own worth. She fell 3 times. She was betrayed by the man who promised to protect her. She lost her home, her confidence, and almost lost her child, but she never lost herself. She carried that self through hospital rooms and gala bathrooms and courthouse hallways, through 2 in the morning phone calls and therapist offices, and the quiet terror of realizing the person who should have loved her most had built a cage around her instead. And she walked out, not because someone rescued her, because she remembered she had always known how to open doors. She had just forgotten, for a while, that she was allowed to. If you are watching this and you see yourself in Emma's story, hear this. You are not what they called you. You are not the weight you gained or the tears you cried at 3 in the morning. You are not the cruel words someone used to make themselves feel powerful at your expense. You are the woman who got up the next morning and chose herself. And that is the most powerful thing any person can do. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, leave a like and share it so others can hear it too. And do not forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. See you in the next one. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Before you go, I want you to know something important. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real-life lessons. Every character, every scene, and every twist was crafted with purpose to entertain you, to move you, and to remind you of truths that matter. We believe storytelling has the power to heal, to teach, and to connect us across every difference. Thank you for being part of this community. We will see you in the next one.